I'm paying homage to you, Nick, because you came up with the cornball part. So Cornball West addresses his low poll numbers. So I'm going to cover the video more broadly in another segment. But I just for this segment, with the little bit of time that Nick has, I do want to cover just this little small question that he gets when he goes on. So him and his newly crowned VP pick went on CNN, Albie Phillips, for a 17-minute interview. Like I said, we're just going to cover the part where she asked him about the poll numbers, which has to be humiliating because this is the deal that him and like people like Marianne Williamson, even JFK, the deal that they're saying, hey, you could come on here and we'll put you on cable news, but we're going to go at you. We're going to embarrass you in some sort of way. So let's listen.
I do have to ask you about the political realities that we're in. You know this as well as I do. Some of this polling is not good for you, Dr. West. It shows 7 swing states that will decide the election. You are behind Robert Kennedy Jr. in all of them, the low single digits. The same is true in a national poll. The same is true even among independent voters, young voters.
Now, Nick, if Cornel West stayed on a better path with the Green Party and kept coming on RBN to remain accountable to the community and even Black Power Media for that matter, even though we don't really fuck with them, even going on them, do you think his poll numbers would be this horrific? I don't believe they will, but I'm just curious. Maybe you don't think they would change.
Yeah,
but do you think it would be this low? Like you're polling under Jill Stein, and supposedly you have the bigger name. That's crazy to me. But go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to make it too much about us. I won't. But if you just listen to the direction that us leftists, us Marxists was giving you, these numbers would be way better. I'll just leave it at that. Another analysis I have, because I said it before. I don't really care like if I'm offending people anymore. Like I reject all forms of liberalism. I have the failure is not an option mentality now. Like this is the mentality that old school revolutionaries used to have. Like my mindset is so different than it was 4 or 5 years ago. It almost astounds me because I have the failure is not an option approach. So if you start fucking up, the reason why we going after you, and he took it personally. The reason why we went after you because you fucking up and you making us fail. You're creating a movement that we all see is going to fail.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you guys this question here. Imagine you are someone known for standing up for Palestinian people. Imagine you are a guy who have the policies that the majority of poor and working class people who vote independent that you need, you have those policies. Then you get a gift, the gift of unlike no anyone had ever seen. There's a genocide in Gaza. And then one of the biggest third-party options, someone you're supposed to be competing with, is shit on that option. So your biggest person you're competing against, RFK Jr., is horrible on a genocide you are now running against. How do you fuck this up? We said, remember, we got shit on, and I think I deserved it. I took that criticism legitimately from people to my left, my fellow Marxists, commenting like, Nick, you shouldn't give this motherfucker a time of day.
Yeah.
And remember what our response was. I was like, bro, I take all y'all criticism. The reason why I'm doing it is because I think this is a unique time where we can get 5 to 15%. Well, because of the situation we're in, we can spark revolutionary thought. It was such a great position, uniquely great position to run against Genocide Joe while young people were rebelling against them. But despite that, he's at 2%. Despite the greatest situation that anyone could have ever teed up for Cornball. He's at 2%. You know why? Because he didn't want to listen to us. I don't want to pat myself on the back. That's not the point of this segment. At least for me. This motherfucker could have listened to anybody and did better than this. He had the best situation any third-party candidate has ever had in the history of Everdom. And he got 2%. I know I'm an asshole. I don't care anymore. Failure is not an option. You failed, Cornell. And if you're in the PNC class and you raise your hand to be a leader, the onus is on you. And he couldn't handle the fire. when he realized that we're gonna keep that pressure on him. What the reason why Cornball turned on us is so weird because we criticize him for apparently the straw that broke the camel back is when we criticize him for going after Navalny. The point I keep making is that you guys realize that Cornel West was trending on Twitter and everyone on Black Twitter was dragging him. That's why I thought I was literally blown away when we talked about this in our group chat when we saw that Cornel West came after us by name. I was like, what? I was literally aback because we was one. It wasn't a unique RBN take, my friends. Every Black fucking political account on the left was calling him out, but he aimed at us. That's why I was like, wait, what? Because he wanted to turn us to a media arm. He wanted to turn us to yes men instead of listening to the advice that just not us, but everyone was giving him. Don't run as a fucking COVID authoritarian. Don't run like when you got Trump derangement syndrome. Focus on class-based politics and focus on the wars that are prevalent to this day right now. This is how you build a coalition. And this motherfucker was so aggressively against anyone giving him advice, and this is what it led to. He's a jazz man. I go to the theme of my own music, and I'm gonna get 2%. I'm gonna get 2% of my jazz. So
that was such game he tried to run on us. That was such game. The whole I'm a jazz man. You mean you make bad decisions? Because that's what it ended up being, Nick. And just to seal the point, there's no way that a person with so many academic accolades, Nick, is making this many bad decisions, including the VP pick. If you didn't see my stream, I covered a small segment. Now, she does great work in the activism space, but she's the person who sued Black Lives Matter, called for $10 million saying corruption. She's that person and lost, and didn't only lose, the court thought it was a malicious lawsuit that she was bringing. So they awarded the other people money against her. Why would he pick a person like that? Unless he is intentionally trying to lose. And that's the question posed to him. Let's listen to his answer. It's very brief.
Voters, people who I think you would think are part of your constituency. Do you read that as a sign that there is not perhaps the appetite for what you are putting on the table?
Well, we shall see. It has never looked good for anybody who has a deep love for Black people, love for poor people, love for working people to be up.
Now you trying to blame them for your bad decisions. How dare you? I'm not going to go any further with this because I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to cover it. I just wanted to get your general reaction. I'm going to cover it when because I know you don't have time to cover it right now. But this is pretty disgusting that what this guy does. Actually, I might cover it now. So I'm going to give you your final words, Nick.
Yeah, I actually want to see it. I'll be watching.
This guy, man, trying to blame it. Oh, it's because I support Black people. And no, it's not. No, it's not. It's because you've been making terrible decisions. But just to lean on that is so PMC of him. But what's up next for you, Nick? What's happening tomorrow, Nick at Night? Any special guests you got booked? Anything you want to announce before you
got a guest Thursday? I'm blanking. I got some shows for you guys. I'm blanking right now, but trust me, I got some shows for Nick at Night. I had the Palestinian. If you guys didn't watch Nick at Night on Thursday, I'm plugging again. I'm plugging this show multiple times because if there's gonna be any stream you watch, and Nick at Night is the one where I had Ashley bring on multiple Palestinian activists and CJ. Just so you know, like we making. Like once again, we our impact, it seems outside because the amount of people in the Palestinian community who have love and respect for RBN is immense. Like these are kind of things we don't see. Like I'm talking to all these people. Why you guys think I'm able to throw a panel? I threw that panel together in literally 12 hours. I was like, oh shit, Nick at Night, I need to get some panels. Hit Ashley up, got a bunch of well-known, well-established Palestinian activists and well-named because they all knew who we are. Like two of them, like y'all was big fans of RBN. I didn't know till I talked to Ashley afterwards. Like two of them got like Instagram accounts with like 150,000+ followers. I didn't even know.
Big people, you even know that.
I didn't even know. I was like, yo, Ashley, I got faith in you. I know she like, give me some people. And these are well-known people. They're like, yeah, we all fuck with RBN. Now I got more people after that last year. I got more people in the community hit me up like, y'all want to go on? We got more activists. Ashley hit me up literally middle of the stream to give me names right now. So this is why I take pride in. The PMC class hates RBN, my friends. The professional managerial class, they smear us left and right. Hassan, Vox, TYT, the PMC left hates us. The activists don't. Union organizers don't. The Palestinian community don't. Those are the allies that we want.
Cornel West goes on CNN. They allow him to talk about what he wants to talk about, which is introducing his VP pick. But then they go on and destroy him in front of the same audience, which they always do. Anytime they bring these people on, they let you come on. Yeah, you could come in and sell your bullshit, but then I'm going to destroy you before I let you go off the segment. And they always do that. I've seen it many times, particularly with Cornel West. I've also seen it with RFK. But let's listen to Cornball West.
Tonight, a history-making pair promising to disrupt the normal order of business. Cornel West and Melina Abdullah are the first African-American pair to top a presidential ticket. West announced his running mate yesterday and says his choice would put a smile on the face of Martin Luther King Jr. from the grave. Abdullah is a political newcomer, having never run for a political office before.
How dare you? How dare you use the memory of MLK? You see how the professional managerial class, it's not just the white liberals that do this. You have him, the guy who's running scare from Joe Biden, the guy who ran from ballot access. Now you want to lean on MLK as you run cowardly away from a real fight against the establishment. But here we go.
She is also a university professor and a Black Lives Matter activist and organizer. She says that they are running to show Americans that there is another way, a way that doesn't saddle them with a choice between Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
Both of us want to disrupt the narrative that you have only two choices, or want to say, the world tries to tell us that we're tethered to certain ideas that we don't have to be tethered to. We can be expansive and imaginative.
Joining me for their first joint television interview since announcing that ticket is independent presidential candidate Dr. Cornel West and his vice presidential nominee, Dr. Melina Abdullah. Thank you both for being with us. Dr. West, I want to start with you. This is, as you noted, a history-making choice on your part, an all-African-American ticket, but also a ticket that includes the first Muslim on a...
And is this an all-doctor ticket, too? This is an all academia? Is this an all professor ticket too? How many other barriers are they breaking here?
I'm on a presidential ticket that was announced on Eid, the end of Ramadan. What message are you sending by doing that?
First, I want to thank you for having both of us on. It's always a blessing to be on with my dear sister Melina. But no, I think both of us, we come from a great tradition of a great people who, in the face of hatred, terror, and trauma, produce love warriors, freedom fighters, and wounded healers. And both of us attempt to be true to that tradition. That's what I meant when I said put a smile on the face of Fannie Lou Hamer, a smile on the face of Martin Luther King Jr., smile on the face of Harriet Tubman. So very much like the musicians, you know what I mean? That when Marvin and Tammy get together, or when Count Basie asks for Billie Holiday, it's a black ticket rooted in the best of a people, but it embraces everybody because it's about justice across the board. It's about freedom across the board. Most importantly, it's about truth, because we got a whole lot of lying and hatred and revenge in American politics. We provide an alternative vision and a different way of engaging politics.
So I do have to ask you about
So all of that's great. All of that's great. What does that do if you're not on ballots? Isn't it something? One of the candidates who has the best platform, who has a lot of the best stances on policy, doesn't want to get on a bunch of ballots. That's weird. I don't really even understand why they even include Cornel West in the polling data. For what? Because he's not really getting 2% of nothing is what?
About the political realities that we're in. You know this as well as I do.
So we covered this polling part, so I'll let it play through since we've already covered this 35-second section.
Some of this polling is not good for you, Dr. West. It shows 7 swing states that will decide the election. You are behind Robert Kennedy Jr. in all of them, the low single digits. The same is true in a national poll. The same is true even among independent voters, young voters, people who I think you would think are part of your.
Do you understand the margin of error is 4? Do you understand that? The margin of error is 4, and he has 2%. So in theory, the margin of error means that it could be 4 more points above. It could be at 6%, or it could be 4 points below. You mean Cornel West could be getting negative 2% with this margin of error and this low polling? But just to point that out, margin of error is 4%.
Your constituency. Do you read that as a sign that there is not perhaps the appetite for what you are putting on the table?
So do you read these low poll numbers as a sign that if there isn't an appetite? I would add, do you read this as a sign that people don't buy your campaign seriously since you left the Green Party? I think that would be a more accurate or more well-positioned question.
Well, we shall see. It has never looked good for anybody who has a deep love for Black people, love for poor people, love for working people to be up against the system. That's just the case. You know what I mean? You understand that, Trinidad, Brother Carlos, Sister June. We gonna keep loving our child, but it doesn't look good. Look at you now. Sharp, on TV, Harvard trained. You never know. You got to keep loving, keep fighting, keep swinging. That's what this ticket is all about, and I'm blessed to be with my dear sister on it.
So I want to ask Dr. Abdullah, you are a newcomer to the political sphere, and I want to ask you about some of your positions. You have tweeted in the past about supporting defund the police, which is something that I think perhaps some people in the Black Lives Matter movement support, but also this tweet from back in 2015. The KKK, the police, and government officials are one in the same.
That's based. Now let's see if she, and I haven't seen this, let's see if she stands her ground, and if she does, let's see how strongly she stands her ground on this here. Because that's a base tweet, and that's a pretty accurate tweet.
I wonder, do you stand by that comment?
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. I want us to understand the history of policing in this country. And so Twitter doesn't allow you to give a whole history of policing in this country. But in a few sentences, we can just confirm that there is no historian that I've ever come in contact with who disputes the fact that policing in this country hails from slave catching. And so when we say that policing is, the new millennial slave catching, we're not saying that we don't want public safety. We're saying we want real public safety where community is really centered, where Black safety is centered. And we know that when Black people are safe, we also create safety for everyone else.
Dr. West, you talked about your campaign being about abolishing police brutality.
So let's examine what what you see on the screen here. You have essentially 3 Black elites who, what I would say, all 3 of them have their blind spots because they are Black elites, because they're part of the bourgeoisie, the petty bourgeoisie, having a discussion about slave catchers, what you call police officers. And you have, this is what it looks like when we say identity politics have been used this way. So you have a Black woman who puts on her Negro servant, her house Negro hat to come in and essentially defend by way of or via her questioning of defend the police of slave catchers. And I would be remiss not to even mention, and she's the darkest of the 3. So the person who's the darkest of the 3, and because I'm bringing that up, because genetically, that could likely speak to the fact that she doesn't have fewer sort of race mixing in her ancestry, meaning she is, the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. You know that saying? She's the one that's the representative of the house Negro in this setting. That's essentially what she's here to do. Because her bringing up defund the police, Who does that scare? Who is her audience for the questioning that she's doing about defund the police? It's not black people. The audience she's targeting by what she's going after is not black people. It's not brown people. It's not indigenous people. It's the same white people that Fox News lies about crime statistics to. Sorry, white people. It's a white demographic that she's going after, which is shameful to me. So let's listen to more of this shameful questioning by Abby Phillips.
Public safety, where community is really centered, where Black safety is centered. And we know that when Black people are safe, we also create safety for everyone else.
Dr. West, you talked about your campaign being about abolishing police brutality, poverty, and homelessness. Can you be specific? What are the policies behind those pretty big, lofty ideas?
Well, one is that, you see, abolition is the fundamental theme of the Black freedom movement that embraces poor and working people across the board. Abolition of slavery,
Sure.
Abolition of Jim Crow. I want abolition of poverty. I want the abolition of homelessness. I want the abolition of workers not gaining access to wages, so that the larger context of policing has to do with
why, as he's trying to explain, answer your question that you just asked, Abby. Why is the question is how? Why are you thinking that it's important enough for you to even interrupt to say the question is how? And my question would be to you, why isn't the question is how when it comes to military funding? I've never seen you ask anybody the question is how when it comes to Ukraine. This is the deal that these Black faces in high places make in order to be given the position they're given. So she's given this position to be the Black face of CNN, but in the small print of her contract, this means on the very few rare occasions, you're going to have to come out and represent white supremacy versus some Black people.
We got to make sure we don't have poor people in despair. We got to make sure the young children have quality education, health care, and
it's because if this was a white person having the same question, you see how that's not bad, that's bad optics.
Living wage and safe community. So it goes hand in hand in that regard. But it's the ugly police brutality. And we just saw in Mississippi with Brother Jenkins and Brother Parker. Thank God for Malik Shabazz and Brother Trent down there, the lawyers. What happened down there? These brothers getting shot in the mouth. We see it over Dexter Reed in Chicago. That's what we want to abolish in a fundamental way.
I think the question was, forgive me for interrupting, about policy solutions. We acknowledge the problem. Right. What is the solution in your mind?
No, but abolition of poverty is a policy. That's very important. Wages being high enough, quality education is a policy.
This is one of the things. Now, maybe he'll go into detail, but this was one of the critiques I had of Dr. Cornel West. He hasn't displayed the ability to talk about specific policy. He has an ability to talk about grand ideas. So you have identified a problem. So what legislatively do you want to pass to fix the problem? This is where he finds it very hard to answer questions.
And then we have police community having oversight of the police and the police being accountable. That's why I mentioned Brother Jenkins and Brother Parker. Police must be accountable, but we have to understand policing in the context of the larger communal conditions, which have to do with too many poor people, not enough access to education.
We have
access to healthcare.
A lot of issues on the table here in this election. Yes. One of the biggest ones right now is what's going on in Gaza, in the war over there. I know that you both support a ceasefire there. The latest
not just ceasefire, end of occupation, end of the siege,
sure.
Palestine.
But can I just ask you specifically about where we stand here today? Hamas, according to CNN's reporting, cannot assure Israel that it has 40 living hostages that are women, that are ill, that are elderly, out of the more than 100 that are still believed to be in Gaza. If they cannot do that, they don't know where they are, perhaps they can't guarantee that they are still alive. Should Hamas, immediately release all of the hostages in exchange for a ceasefire that is desperately needed by the people of Gaza.
So what she's trying to do is set it up to where, in order for you see it, she did it backwards. In order to get a ceasefire, in order to get a ceasefire, we have to do something with these hostages, and they can't confirm 40 being alive, so that you must release all of them, is what she's saying. Let's listen to what he said. It's very important to hear how he addresses a question about Hamas. Let's listen.
No, well, we've got to look at the situation from the vantage point of the least of these, the 25th chapter of Matthew. There's 15,000 Palestinian children who've been murdered.
That's all the more reason why.
The children. They got to quit killing the innocent.
You notice the Negro servant, and you notice the AIPAC shield, the Israel lobby, known as the anchor. They can't allow compassionate speech about Palestine in any way without interjecting about Israel, without interjecting about some sort of hostages. As if that equates, as if 40 fucking hostages. And I'm at the point right now, I say fuck them hostages. That's where I'm at. You're talking about you're officially at around 40,000 dead people, unofficially well over 100,000. And you're still talking about October 7th? Fuck October 7th. Fuck them fucking hostages. Fuck the 1,400 people that got killed. Sorry. That's what happens when your response to that is a genocide.
More reason why there ought to be a ceasefire. It is possible for there to be a ceasefire tomorrow if Hamas would release all the hostages in their possession immediately. Should they not do that?
No, the IDF is not gonna cease fire just for releasing. They themselves have to stop the bombing.
That's the deal that is on the table.
Why does she keep interrupting the person? You ask a question, and because he's not going down the path you want, you keep interjecting things to try to be a guardrail to put him back in line on the pathway you want him to go. So if you were to get the hostages tomorrow, you're saying the invasion of Rafah would never happen? Is that what you're saying? Let's say it wasn't to ever happen. Let's say we were just to go back to pre-October 7th. You know how they like to say it was a ceasefire October 6th. Let's say we go back to that time. The year of 2023 was one of the most deadliest years for Gazans, for Palestinians. Those articles had already been reported on. Pre-October 7th. Pre-October 7th, 2023 was already labeled one of the most deadliest years in recent memory for Palestinians. So what she's saying on face is just on face value is just incorrect. So you're fine with going back to the slow genocide of Palestinians. That's what she says. That's what she says. Going back to we can have a ceasefire now. Can we?
And Hamas themselves say they can't assure them that
each life is precious, Israeli or Palestinian, whatever. But it's the Palestinian lives that are being lost. We've got to start there. That's been part of the problem with Biden. That's been part of the problem with Schumer. They don't look at the situation from the vantage point of those who are suffering the most. They look at
Dr. West. It does sound like you will not say.
You notice how she keeps interrupting him because she knows where he's going. And Dr. West is milquetoast ass because he wants to be invited back on to CNN. He's just not. Why don't you continuing to make your point? That's some bitch shit. That's some cowardice shit. Finish your point about the empire. She is paid to interrupt you when she hears you going down the path of saying some unflattering things about the empire that they don't like to be put out on public TV. But you take the bait and stop when she starts to speak. You think she doesn't hear what you're saying? Listen to what when she
They
interrupts.
themselves
That's-
have to stop the
That's
bombing.
the
They gotta
deal
I'm gonna rewind. Just listen at the points where she decides to start over talking.
that is desperately needed by the people of Gaza.
No, well, we've got to look at the situation from the vantage point of the least of these. The 25th chapter of Matthew, there's 15,000 Palestinian children who've been murdered.
That's
We've
all the
got to
more
quit-
You see? But that's all the more when he's talking about 15,000 people murdered. You don't think she can hear?
Killing the
why-
children.
Let's go
They gotta
to the
quit
next-
That's
killing
all the more
innocent
reason why there ought
people.
to be a
Go to the
ceasefire.
next
It
one.
is
I agree.
possible for
I
there to be a
agree.
ceasefire tomorrow if Hamas
If-
would release
No,
all the
it's-
hostages in their
You are a
possession
fucking liar.
immediately. Should they not do that?
No, the IDF is not gonna cease fire just for releasing. They themselves
That's-
have to stop the
That's
bombing.
the
They gotta
deal.
keep
That's the
killing
deal that
folks.
is on the table. And Hamas themselves say
Well, I
they
mean,
can't assure them that they
each
have
life
the
is
40
precious,
hostages.
Israeli or Palestinian, whatever. But it's the Palestinian lives that are being lost. We've got to start there. That's been part of the problem with Biden. That's been part of the problem with
Listen
Schumer.
what he's talking
They
about.
don't look at the situation
interrupt.
from the vantage point of those who are suffering the most. They look at the
Dr. West,
from the
I
vantage
mean, it
point.
does sound like you will not say
Anytime you
that
start talking about suffering for Palestinians, this Negro coon right here, the one who want to celebrate this black person at CNN, what is the black person doing at CNN exactly? You want to celebrate a black face, a black anchor, but what is she doing with her black anchorship? But trying to silence somebody talking about the plight of the Palestinians.
if Hamas were to just release the hostages in exchange for a ceasefire, that they should do that.
No,
Do you believe that they should do that?
One, I'm saying that Netanyahu is not trustworthy. The IDF has engaged in terrorizing the Palestinians, and terrorizing anybody is wrong, but the terrorizing that they are doing, it reaches the point of the crime of genocide. So for me, they have to stop the
There's no
bombing.
responsibility in your mind for Hamas
Oh,
to
Hamas
get
has
us.
So this is what the cable news does to social democrats. They beat them over the head with the point that they know the social democrat is weak on because they're a social democrat and they want to remain in the good graces of the people they look up to, the capitalist bourgeoisie class. So she's going to force the point that you're going to say something about Hamas right here, right now, sir. And just like a good social democrat, he falls right in line. Is
That
what
is
I'm assuming.
Responsibility, of course. They're part of the Palestinian community, and Palestinian community has their own agreements and disagreements, but Hamas is not the culprit at all. It's the IDF, and they're terrorizing Palestinians.
I want to go to
But I know
Dr.
my sister wants
I want to
So I give him kudos on that. They're not the problem at all. It's the IDF. So that's kudos to and I'm going to say Cornell. That deserves his real name, Cornell West. Let's see if he continues.
I want to go to Dr. Abdullah on this because in the early days, just after this war began, shortly after October 7th, the Black Lives Matter chapter of Los Angeles.
Just think about what Abby's doing. The Negro servant. What did you bring them two on for? You let them talk about their campaign for 45 seconds. Then you're going in at them. And you can see the shame on her fucking face. She know when she was given this assignment. Beat up the Negroes when they come on. She knows this is the deal she got to do. But you're relentless here. Are you going to bring up any of her messages or any of her tweets where she's saying something that you agree with? Are you going to bring up any of the tweets that she's talking about feeding the public? Let's see what she brings up here. This is classic Negro servitude right here. This is classic Negro servitude. Because it's not that she's just propping up white supremacy, propping up the white power structure here. She's doing it via destroying two black faces, which is the worst.
It's an organization that you founded and spent some time in. I believe at that time, it wrote this on social media. When a people have been subject to decades of apartheid and unimaginable violence, their resistance must not be condemned, but understood as a desperate act of self-defense. That sounds like a defense of Hamas.
Yes, that was
at that time.
I'm going to say, repeat the same thing that Abby says, but I'm going to change a few words.
It wrote this on social media. When a people have been subject to decades of apartheid and
when people have been subject to centuries of slavery,
unimaginable violence,
and unimaginable violence, rape, hangings,
resistance must not be condemned, but
their resistance must not be condemned. Nat Turner.
understood as a desperate act of self-defense.
It must be understood as a desperate act of self-defense. So this Negro, house Negro, would fall on what side when we're talking about her own ancestors? Because if you take this position in this instance, why wouldn't you take the same position when it came to the Atlantic slave trade? But that's what this Negro servant, and she should be ashamed of herself. And you can, I see shame in her face. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Time.
I would have been like, that question, I'm not doing that one. Nah.
It wrote this on social media. When a people have been subject to decades of apartheid and unimaginable violence, their resistance must not be condemned, but understood as a desperate act of self-defense. That sounds like a defense of Hamas.
Yes,
is that what it was?
That was a statement that was released not just by Black Lives
Defense of Nat Turner, yes.
Matter Los Angeles, but Black Lives Matter Grassroots, which is all 33 on the ground chapters of Black Lives Matter. And we released it October 9th, which was 2 days after October 7th.
So do you agree with
that statement, recognizing?
Do you agree with that sentiment?
Absolutely. I think it's really important to understand where uprisings come from. Even
who is the audience? Think about what's happening here. Who is the audience for this? Who is the audience for three Black people to be talking about this question and the framing to be you're on the wrong side? Who is the audience for this but white people? And dare I say, white racist people is no other audience for this. So Abby Phillips came on here to show her ass for the white racists that watch CNN. Because if you take this position, you take the same position with Nat Turner, ma'am. Who else would be offended by this position? Who else? Scott Ritter even came on here and said, I would not denounce Hamas. Scott Ritter, the military guy. And you have Norman Finkelstein, who has one of the best answers. I'm going to try to find that video. Norman Finkelstein has one of the best responses to this. And he hawkins back his answer to this, and he does bring up Nat Turner. I'm going to try to find that video as this plays here, as she finishes her answers.
Even when we may disagree with tactics that are used, this did not begin on October 7th. This began 75 years ago with the Nakba. And so to understand just one piece of what's happening gives us a complete lack of understanding. So we have to understand this, yes, as a desperate act. And how do we get to peace is to end the occupation. How do we get to peace is to demand a free Palestine.
So Dr. Abdullah, let me ask you plainly, do you condemn what Hamas did on our...
Here's another, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Nat Turner? Do you condemn any slave uprising? Abby, this now, W.E.B. Du Bois talks about this. There's always been a class, and what the United States and the powers that be in the United States understood at a particular point after the Emancipation Proclamation, when they, in the early 50s, 60s, 70s, when they're integrating and really, bringing the African American experience. Man, I'm losing my thought. The grander point, but as the African American experience became more known to the American population, the powers that be knew in order to sell democracy as working, they need to have a buffer class. They need to have a class of Black people where they give more treasures, more trinkets, a more money, a better lifestyle. They needed to create that buffer zone so they could point to those people as this is why this proves that racism or this is not holding back. It proves it because you can see these people, but then they would also use those people in manners like this. Those people will also be used as tools to prove that racism, that sexism in her case, any ism is not going on. I know it's jumbled, but I hope you get the point that I'm trying to make. Now let's finish out this video here.
On October 7th?
Well, I find it really troubling that we're constantly asked to condemn Hamas. I'm not a member of Hamas. Why would I be asked to condemn Hamas?
I don't think
Are we asking?
I'm not a member of Hamas, and
These two doctors need to stop letting this person talk over them and finish the point. Because you're making the point that why you keep asking me as if, and finish that point. She interrupted you for a reason, but let's see if you get back to the point.
I don't find it troubling or difficult at all to say that what happened on October 7th was abhorrent. So I'm wondering if you would be able to say the same.
I find it even more troubling that an entire state has been built on the genocide of a people. And I think that we have to start with that first.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. In particular, when you're speaking directly to a Negro servant.
I ask this question of both of you, but I'll start with you, Dr. West. I noted just in doing some research to prepare for this, you both used the phrase "from the river to the sea." This is being used generally by a lot of.
Oh God. Oh, I'm watching. 60% of this is blind. I only watched up until the point that I showed Nick. The rest of this I went in blind, and this is worse than I thought. So now this Negro servant is about to pivot to from the river to the sea and brand these two as anti-Semitic, like the ADL. Is that what she's about to do? You see what these house Negroes will do in order to keep their lifestyle?
A lot of pro-Palestinian protesters, but it's viewed by Jewish people and pretty widely.
No, it's viewed by Zionists, not by Jewish people, as nothing. It's viewed by Zionists
as a call for the extermination of the state of Israel. Do you believe that the state of Israel should exist?
Well, I have marched with many precious Jewish brothers and sisters who use the same slogan. Because
do you believe the state of Israel should exist? Now, if you are what you say you are, Dr. West, we all know what the answer should be. And that's a resounding hell the fuck no. We're going to see what he says, though. Again, this is blind. My reaction is reaction live, my first reaction. So let's see.
Because they understand there's got to be Palestinian dignity and Jewish dignity. There's got to be Palestinian safety and justice and Jewish safety and justice. They go hand in hand. Right now, there is a river and the sea. It's an apartheid-like state. And they're calling for even fuller control and more occupation. So the river to the sea is already actual. It's just now genocide and ethnic cleansing. We want a situation in which precious Palestinians and precious Jews can live together under conditions of equality.
Does that include a Jewish state in your mind?
A Jewish state that is predicated on the domination of others?
Just a Jewish state in a peaceful
I will not support
region.
any state,
Do you believe
Jewish state or whatever, that is on the necks of anybody, and in this case, Palestinians.
And Dr. Abdullah, what about you?
So he obviously dodged the question, because in order for him to say no to the question, he had to add on all those caveats. A Jewish state that's being apartheid. No, just the Jewish state, motherfucker. Jewish state. He had to add all the caveats so he would have the ability to say no to that question and not have his followers go absolutely crazy if he did otherwise. That's what he just did. Let's see what else he does, and let's see if she posed the questions to her, because I think she would say, yeah, I think the state of Israel should be gone. I mean, based on what she's said so far.
Do you believe that there should be, at this point, a Jewish state?
I think it's really important that we not collapse Jewish people with a Zionist state, right? I've been blessed to be in struggle alongside justice-loving Jewish folks. I have members of my own family line who are Holocaust survivors, and they are Jewish people. I have lots of Jewish folks who stand with us as we chant for a free Palestine. And so it's important that we recognize that there is a distinction to be made between Jewish people and the state of Israel.
I just want to note that it's not just that, the ADL and people like that are.
This is one of the most despicable segments I've seen Abby Phillips do. I'm trying to think, is there one more despicable? I'm sure all of you will be able to point out one that's worse. This is pretty despicable. And both doctors dodged the question. She didn't answer the question either.
That are saying that this is a call for the eradication of Jewish people. So is the head of Hamas. The head of Hamas's political unit says, we will not recognize Israel. Palestine must stretch from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean.
It's not hard to say the state of Palestine should not exist. If you say the United States should not exist, does that mean the people in the United States you say should die? That's not what that means. Any countries can spring up from anywhere. One country name can die and another one is reborn. So let's listen, and she's going to get an answer out of these two about this question. Apparently she is that relentless.
Mediterranean Sea. So if that is his view as well, without the existence of an Israeli state, how can you say so unequivocally that that is not a slogan that at least contemplates something that would be genocide?
Oh, no, there's no doubt that there's
the end of it. Do you see how she is conflating right here? And the intellectual, you call him Cornel West, doesn't do anything. He just goes with it.
Variety of different Palestinian voices in the resistance movement. Hamas doesn't speak for every Palestinian in the same way that Nat Turner didn't speak for every black person when he ended up killing innocent white folk. I don't believe in killing an innocent anybody. But
this is basically Negro servants interviewing other Negro servants, in Cornel West's case, at least. I can't say that about his running mate because I don't know her well enough. Let's see what this guy says here. That wasn't a good start.
Says, we will not recognize Israel. Palestine must stretch from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. So if that is his view as well, without the existence of an Israeli state, how can you say so unequivocally that that is not a slogan that at least contemplates something that would be genocide?
Oh, no, there's no doubt that there's a variety of different Palestinian voices in the resistance movement. Hamas doesn't speak for every Palestinian in the same way that Nat Turner didn't speak for every black person when he ended up killing innocent white folk. I don't believe in killing an innocent anybody. But But you're going to have a variety of voices, but you don't start with those voices without coming to terms with the vicious killings and occupations that's been going on for 75 years.
So apparently Cornel West has a problem with Nat Turner along with Hamas.
And then you get a counter-terrorist response to that. So that I think it's the framing that has to do with that's
you're
very
calling
important
October
here.
7th a counter-terrorist response.
Oh, absolutely. If you've been terrorized for 75 years and you responded the same way Nat Turner. The NAACP was founded where? At Harper's Ferry with John Brown. John Brown was killing innocent folk. He's wrong to kill innocent folk. Was he wrong to resist slavery? Not at all.
I do want to move on.
That's what Du Bois understood.
We're almost out of time,
Sure,
but I do want to move on real quick just to return back to politics for a moment here, because the big issue that's facing you and Dr. Abdullah is a ballot access. There's a conservative activist, Scott Pressler, who says he's trying to get you on North Carolina ballot.
I don't know. I heard of Scott before. He's trying to help us out.
Would you accept his help?
No, I don't think.
Look at him cowarding out. You're an independent campaign. Why wouldn't you accept money from a conservative? You accepted it from a Hitler collector, Hitler memorabilia collector. This is where the social democrat begins to wane, begins to show his cowardice. Weak ass, this motherfucker's weak.
Who says he's trying to get you on North Carolina ballot.
I don't know. I heard of Scott before. He's trying to help us out.
Would you accept his help?
No, I don't think so. If it's just manipulative, you see, this is a campaign not about little narrow tactics and strategies. When I mention the name of
you have no tactics and no strategies. You're right. This is not a campaign about that. You're right with that one. You have no tactics and no strategies, sir.
King and Fannie Lou Hamer, we're talking about principle.
So
we're talking about integrity. We're talking about truth telling. So if it's just a manipulation, if people are going to use this candidate for X and Y, no, not at all. We come from the people. We for the people. We willing to live and die for the people.
Why are there so many conservatives? Harlan Crow offered you money. He's a major Republican donor. Why are so many conservatives wanting you on the ballot? Do you think it's because
this nigga is dropping the ball on so many of these questions that he should have a better answer for? This is no way in intent. This is intentional.
It's because they think that
do
you
you know of any
President
other conservatives who's doing that?
I just named one. I mean, Harlan.
Other than Harlan.
But
he's
I mean,
the
that's
only
two.
One. He's the only one. And I've known Harlan for the last year.
So at least he caught that. So we know that he can catch shit real time. She tried to make it seem like he has a bunch of conservatives, and he can. What do you mean, bunch of? Harlan and who else? So we can see that you are able to catch lies real time. You just want to only the ones you want to catch. Apparently,
he's got a precious family. I've connected with him in terms of Robert George, and Harlan is anti-Trump. He's a Republican. I've got some Republican friends, but what did I do? I sent the money back, and I told Harlan, God bless you and your family.
A play to hurt President
but Harlan
Biden.
didn't give me money to manipulate me. Not at all. No, that's not true at all. That's not true at all.
At the end of the day, Dr. West, are you worried at all that this effort, even Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s effort, could end up resulting in
he's worse on the Palestinian question than Biden is.
And you're losing. He's worse, and you are losing to him. As a genocide is going on, that's an indication of how terrible your campaign is being ran, sir.
Could result in a Donald Trump presidency.
Well, we'll have to see in real time. We still got a number of months. Trump may end up in jail, and Biden may run out of gas and do an LBJ thing and pull out, and they have to move to the B team as we move to Chicago. We don't know. What we got to be is true to our calling, telling the truth and seeking justice, and standing in solidarity with oppressed people here and around the world.
All right, Dr. Cornel West, Dr.
That was brutal. That was 95% attack mode for 5% of them saying she's announced. I don't even understand why he came on here. I don't understand why he came on the show.